Hey folks, welcome to day 4, the recap of day 4. Pops and I have been doing this tour through France. Tomorrow, however, we head to Belgium,
Yes.
which is going to be it's going to be a long ride. I think it's 5 to 6 hours from where we're at here, where the beaches all are. And so tomorrow's a travel day. We're going to get to Bastogne tomorrow and hopefully have some time to just walk around, have dinner, check it out. And then the following day we get back on the tour. So if there is no real update or video tomorrow, please forgive us.
It's just a travel day.
Yeah, just a travel day. Nobody gives a shit about that. But today we hit Gold Beach, we hit Juno Beach, and we hit Sword Beach, as well as Pegasus Bridge. And before we hit the beach this morning, we went to this place. It's farmland. Neither one of us can pronounce it, so we're not even going to try, so we don't sound stupid. But what they have there is 4 Nazi bunkers that were built in preparation for the D-Day landing. Apparently Hitler had guessed or had a hunch that this was going to be coming and ordered these bunkers to be built. And they were large cannons that could reach out pretty far into the ocean to try to hit landing crafts or ships or whatever. But they didn't hit anything. I believe Ben had said that they shot about 180 rounds on D-Day and not one of them hit because their aiming device, the binocular or whatever the hell it was called, their sight up at the observation point wasn't calibrated and it wasn't zeroed properly. And so they weren't able to hit the targets that they saw because they weren't getting accurate directions and all that other stuff. So it was kind of inconsequential, but the reason we went there is because these are the 4 bunkers that are still pretty much intact that you can go into, you can walk around, you can see, and that's really it. Did I miss anything, Dad?
They also had an observation outpost at the edge of the cliff, and they were using that and being able to send information to the bunkers by phone to try to get the coordinates to hit the Allies' ships coming to shore.
Correct. And that's where they had this sighting device that wasn't calibrated properly. So it was beautiful views. Everywhere we've been has been a beautiful view of the ocean and the shoreline. And then when you get out on the beach or you get out to where you're at and you turn around, it's just another beautiful, it's a 360 degree, pretty amazing views. So we saw all those things. It was really cool. To be able to go in these bunkers, see the rooms, see how they were built, see where they got hit from miles out. Clearly, the Brits were a lot better at targeting their artillery from the ocean onto land, but Germans were not very good at doing all of that to go back out. And part of the reason for that is that all these were built and maintained by Nazi prisoners. So they had Poles out there, they had French folks, of course, people that they had taken prisoner, and they had directed them to build these bunkers. And after the first month or two, when nothing was built except for a few rows of bricks, they sent Rommel out there to motivate these prisoners. And so they did build them, and they're sturdy, they're still standing. Even the one that took a direct hit is still standing, although it's damaged. But I believe that they kind of sabotaged it maybe so that they weren't built properly. They don't say that, but it would lead me to believe that that's what happened.
Correct.
Anything else about there, Dad, that stuck out to you?
No, not at all.
Yeah. It was just kind of a place to walk and see, get a little bit of information. One thing I did steal from there, sorry, France, was a wild poppy. They had wild poppies growing on the trails. So I grabbed one and put it in my book. So if that's illegal, well, I guess you're going to have to come back and find me. After that, we went to Gold Beach. And Gold Beach is where, and again, we have our cheat sheet. So Gold Beach on D-Day was stormed at 7:30 a.m. The Brits were the ones to take Gold Beach. They did it with 25,000 soldiers and had 1,023 casualties. It wasn't all that difficult. I mean, I know 1,000 guys, you lost 1,000 guys, either dead or wounded or missing or whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, it sounded like they took the beach in pretty short order. But this, to me, was pretty significant because this is where they built their temporary harbor. And you've probably seen pictures of all these pieces of the harbor that are still left there, half submerged. And it's quite a cool town. I wish that I could pronounce the name of it, but it is Gold Beach runs right into this small town built into the hillside. We had lunch there. There's a lot of memorials to the Brits. Dad, Gold Beach, your thoughts?
It was an old fashioned European town. It had this European flavor, small town, friendly people, and it was amazing. It was simply an amazing place to be.
Yeah, what did I buy there? Oh, they have a military relics shop there, which is really cool. I was gonna buy a American helmet to bring home, but the guy wanted 800 euros for one, and I couldn't justify it. Plus, I'd probably be in trouble with my wife. So, but it was a really cool place. He had stuff from the British soldiers, American soldiers, the Nazi soldiers, just all kinds of things from World War II that people have found or sold to him or donated or whatever. Dad, I didn't walk out on the beach. You did. Can you talk about I don't even remember what they're called.
I believe they were some sort of, not a bunker, but they were using these canisters as part of a docking station for ships to come in. And because of the tides that were part of, I can't remember.
But they use them. They're large. They're very large. I'd say they're about the size of a basketball court, to give a guess. But they put a ton of them together, and they're made out of steel. And so when they made them, what I do remember is when they made them in the UK to bring over here, they're full of just little tiny crevices or compartments, I guess is a good word. And they would fill them with water and sand to sink them so that they couldn't be seen by recon planes. And then when they wanted to bring them over to set up their harbor at Gold Beach, they just pumped out the water and sand, they floated, and then they towed them over here. And this temporary harbor that the British built there was about the size of a couple hundred football fields, apparently.
Yes.
It was massive, and they could have their troop carrying ships. They could have whatever naval ships they needed. Probably not aircraft carriers, but be a destroyer or a supply ship or whatever.
Yeah.
They could all dock there. They could be unloaded. They could get maintenance if they needed them. But it was a pretty cool place. It's cool to see. I gotta be honest, I was a little less engaged today. I still had some remnants of the cemetery and Point de Hawk and Omaha Beach from yesterday, but all good information. And I'll tell you one thing and we'll talk about it when we talk about Sword and Pegasus as well. The Brits weren't messing around, man. They got here and they cleaned house in short order, and they were efficient, seemingly. So they did a pretty good job. Anything else about Gold Beach, Dad, that you want to throw in?
No, that's it.
Okay. So then we got on the bus and went to Juno Beach. Now, Juno Beach is where all of our neighbors to the north, the Canadians, came from. They stormed Juno Beach. Let me get my cheat sheet. On D-Day, they stormed Juno Beach with 21,400 soldiers, and they took 1,242 casualties. So there was a tour of a couple of the bunkers. I didn't go in them. I don't do well in small, confined spaces. This guy went in. Dad, talk about the bunkers that you went into.
Yeah, the bunkers were used as, one of the bunkers that I went into was used as a observation for the Nazis were using to watch for the ships coming in. There was a couple of other bunkers that they had there where they were storing ammo. They had been on like 10 or 12-hour shifts, 2 or 3 officers or soldiers. And so it was used primarily for observation to watch for the Allied ships to come in, for the Canadians. So, but they were in cramped spaces. If you were claustrophobic, you wouldn't want to be there.
Which is why I didn't go in. But it was interesting to see the monuments that they have built there. There's a visitor center that was built by the Canadian government. And the coolest thing about it to me is that this visitor center and slash museum that they have there is all manned by Canadians. And more importantly than that, they're young Canadians. The girl was saying when she started the tour that part of the directive from the government was that the Canadians that work there, they do 6 or 7 months at a time on a volunteer basis. They are mandated to represent as closely as possible the soldiers that stormed the beach there. And the average age of the soldiers that stormed the beach that were Canadian at Juno Beach was 19 years old. She did say there's reports of men who were, not even men, kids that were 17 that were there fighting, that stormed the beach. And so it's really cool to me that the Canadian government mandates that if you want to be a part of this, that you do it as a child or as a young person, a teenager, or your early 20s, to keep their youth involved so that they understand what happened and what their fellow countrymen went through when they got there, give them some perspective. I think that's something that the U.S. could take a note on. There's not a lot of things, in my opinion, that we should be taking note on from Canada, but that's one of them. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's very important to keep the youth informed about what happened here, what happened everywhere around the world that they might have been involved in or did. And I think that the youth of America could really benefit from that. That's just my opinion. Anything else about Juno?
That's it.
All right, so after Juno, we went on to Sword Beach, which was also stormed by the British. 2 of the 3 beaches today were stormed by the Brits, the third one, the Canadians. Sword Beach on D-Day was taken by 28,845 soldiers, and they suffered 1,304 casualties. And to be honest, I didn't hear anything. I was on a phone call with my family back home dealing with issues. Everything's okay. Everyone's good, so nothing to worry about, but I had to take the call.
And then we were only there for 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah. So do you remember anything that was told to you?
There was something in regards of these 2 British officers, and one of them was a lead officer, and his partner played the bagpipes, and they were involved in the bridge that we went to go see later on, Pegasus, in reference to taking over that bridge. So that's about all that I remember.
And I don't remember nothing. So sorry, Ben. I'm sure your presentation was great, but I had to talk to the family. So after that, we went over to Pegasus Bridge, which out of everything we did today, other than lunch and Gold Beach was pretty awesome. And the town there was pretty awesome. But Pegasus Bridge is probably my favorite. And so that story, again, is the British and their gliders. They landed 3 gliders at the bridge. The reason why this bridge, along with another one that was 4 or 5 kilometers to the east, is that it was the shortcut to the mainland and into Germany. So those bridges needed to be secured in order to cut off the German reinforcements. Without those bridges, they would have had to go miles and miles south to come back north. I think it was 10 to 15 kilometers. So these bridges were pretty important, especially on D-Day, because the Allied forces were concentrating on getting people on the shore and taking the beachhead and then moving inland. And so there was 3 gliders that landed at Pegasus Bridge, which from Sword Beach is probably a 4 or 5 minute drive. It's not far. And the directive was that they needed to land these gliders no further than 50 meters from the bridge. These guys landed these gliders, all 3 of them, 48 meters from the bridge. They all landed within 4 minutes of each other, and they took the bridge in 15 minutes. They suffered one KIA. I assume it was the guy that was probably the first out of the first glider. But the reports say that there was only 2 Germans on the bridge. I don't recall, or I don't remember hearing if there was any other Germans there. But they took it in short order. They held it. They suffered 1 casualty. And there's a museum there. There's all kinds of things. But the gliders, to me, are pretty sweet because these things were made out of plywood. They were towed by bombers or something like that through And then they just cut them loose. And now here you have this glider with a bunch of men in it. Do you remember how many? I think it was 28. 28 men, a pilot and a co-pilot. So they had 30 guys in these gliders. Well, they cut loose just before they hit the mainland and went way south and turned around and came north, landed these things 48 meters from the bridge they were supposed to take. And man, it's pretty amazing. You're in a glider, right? And they cut you loose. You got no engines.
No power.
You got no power, no navigation equipment. You got a map, maybe a lighter or a candle or a flashlight or whatever. And all the dudes sitting in the back that are waiting to get out to take this bridge are they have zero control of anything. And maybe they don't have control in a regular plane, but at least you got power, right? So if something happens, you may still be able to land safely or get away, whatever, but not these things. They took flak or they took small arms fire or anything like that. They're dead in the water. And they sat in there and they whipped these son of a bitches around and landed it and took the bridge. And then they had to, do you remember how long they had to hold the bridge until reinforcements came? I think it was like 3 hours or something.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, while they were waiting for the rest of their reinforcements to land on the beach, on Sword Beach. Sorry, Dad, I'm kind of hogging the time.
That's all right.
What about Pegasus Bridge that stood out to you?
Well, just the fact that how they took this bridge in a short period of time. It was just like, it went like clockwork. Everything played into where it's supposed to be. They took off from across the English Channel around 11 o'clock before midnight and was able to make it across the English Channel within the hour. And it was a pretty quick mission, a very successful mission at that.
And very important.
Yeah.
Was very important to the success of the rest of their units
Yeah.
on the 3 beaches just to the west of them. And so, yeah, we got to see a movie about the whole thing, hear from some of the guys that landed there. I believe they're probably not with us anymore, but they made it to an anniversary, or a bunch of them, and gave testimony. And so the one thing about all of these places, some of them are not as awesome, I suppose, as the others. But the one thing about all these places is that they're very well done. The information is readily available. If you have questions, people that know that are working around there are all willing to stand and sit and talk to you until your questions are answered. So I appreciate that. They keep everything immaculate. And so there's a story to tell at all of these places, and they tell the stories well. I believe that they go to great lengths to make sure that the stories of these people, these men, some women, but whoever, even some civilians that help out, they go to great lengths to ensure that you know everything you should and want to know. And it's really in their honor because they're not able to tell their story. And, you know, we've talked before on 3 Clicks, also on the Richard Leonard Show, about the power of personal story. And so I really appreciate all the stuff that they have to tell us and everything they have to show us. And the, why are we doing this? We're using a gimbal, folks. So this is a little wonky and my hand's getting tired. But yeah, everything they have to show us and tell us is all there, and they do an amazing job. So I really appreciate all of it. But like I said, I was a little less engaged today. Still trying to process all the information we got from Ben and Christoph yesterday at Omaha and Point to Hawk, and just the feeling of all of it and the cemetery. That kind of rounds out our time at the beaches. Now, tomorrow, as we said, we're going to travel to Belgium, and then we continue on with the Path of Easy Company and the 1st Airborne. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And maybe that's another reason why I was a little less engaged today, because I just want to get to Belgium. I want to be there. I want to see it. I want to learn, and I want to take it all in.
Well, the rest of the tour is after we leave Belgium, we go through Luxembourg. And from Luxembourg, we get to Austria, check out Hitler's Eagle's Nest, and also our way into Munich.
Yeah, we get to see all of it. And so I'm ready to get the show on the road. So that's all we have for today. Sorry, it's a little less organized than usual, maybe, but we've committed to bringing you our travels every day. And so this is what we're doing. And we're doing it with tired hands and a gimbal. So we'll sign off. We got to pack. We got to pack all of our shit up so that we can get on the road early in the morning.
Yep.
Dad, anything to end on?
No, I'm just looking forward for tomorrow, travel day, and off to Belgium.
Off to Belgium we go. All right, folks, stick with us. We'll be back. Thanks for following along. If you have been, it's pretty cool that we can share this with the people who want to see it. So I didn't tell you today, but I'll tell you now. Get your ass here if you want to. It's important. It's awesome.
Yep.
All right. See ya.
See ya.